first of all, I just wanted to say thank you very much, Mr. Al Mulla, for your valued time, of course. Welcome to the interview for GCC nationalization. One of the key things IQPC has been trying for the last 6 years is to educate the people responsible for nationalizing not just companies but the country itself. Due to the developments in the industry and the growth in the GCC, in UAE, Qatar, Saudi, etc., obviously there's been a large expat population which has been helping in the growth. But that's obviously a transition, because once this is done, the idea is to hand over all of this to the locals, because it is their country. Now, there has been a varying degree of success and, of course, learning areas. Not everything will always work. So, I wanted to start with my first question, which is, what do you think is the biggest success for nationalization in UAE?
First of all, I would like to thank you for giving me the chance to participate. Give you my honest opinion about the different Emiratisation programs and initiatives which has been launched since 2000. And we can say that UAE is one of the leader country in the region, taking into consideration the importance and the value of the Emiratisation project as an overall. Let's say after 12 years of heavily and incentive work in the market, I can say that the biggest success is for the UAE government and for the UAE nationals is the very good and excellent and mature integrate between the private sector and the public sector. However, still we are always saying that it is in very early stage. Why? Because the opportunities and the number of the opening, which is being introduced every year in the market, it is huge. And I do remember that once we met with the Minister of Labour of Oman, he said that really we did a lot of excellent work, projects, initiatives in terms of the Omanization. And he said only one point is still we are unable to reach to, which is creating jobs. And here is the vital point where we are always saying that UAE managed to create jobs, not only for the nationals, for the non-nationals and expats. If you take that into consideration in terms of the number of jobs which is available for all, you find it is big. And for the Emirati specifically, it is even more. So how can we grab this chance and start in a way where we can add more values to the future generations? So the integration between the private sector and the government sector, it is one of the best, and I can say it is the fruitful of the excellent work in the past 12 years.
It's good you mentioned about that, because I want to just give the audience a brief summary. From 2000 up to year 2007, a lot of the focus used to be on meeting certain quotas. Initially, whether it's the banking sector, mostly the banking sector, other sectors. Then from 2007 up to 2009, it was a lot about the training and development of the people who have been localized and those who are coming. Since then, the focus has now also gone into a greater integration, like you said, of private and public sector. Where do you think should be the focus for other countries which are trying to nationalize to start that integration of private and public sector? Because that's still a lapse. So where do you think they should begin?
Actually, I do agree with you 100% on that. Still start on that. And in our today's session, we are going to focus on this specifically. I can say for you, generally, at most of the country which is nearby UAE or in the region, Middle East and North Africa, what is missing big time in our country is the career guidance and the career counseling.
From whom?
From the school levels. This is our issues. I'm not going to say it's a problem. No, it's our issue. Why? Because I said that we're having an excellent integration between the private sector and the public. But it means that, we need, to do a bit what we want for the different nationals at the GCC level. Accepting the jobs at the private sector, it's not an easy decision. But taking it into the practical side, you'll find that most, or I can say all the nationals who join the private sector at the beginning of their careers, you see that they are more successful in their career. Which means that, that we need to focus more on the career guidance and the career counseling, and to give it more attention in terms of how the government can support the private sector by understanding what is the private sector needs, not developing any new projects or plan without taking into consideration what's the private sector needs. Because the private sector, it is one of the main elements for the UAE economy as an overall, and Dubai specifically. Dubai, it's a services city. It's all depends, on the services. And His Highness always, in his vision, he's focusing that how can we be, number one in everything. And services, it is one of the main area. So for that, he actually implemented a lot of excellent initiatives where even the government will focus on what? On quality and providing best services. Dubai Police, for example, it is one of the best services or one of the best community services we are getting from it
worldwide.
Even though lot of at a lot of countries will find it is not a civilian body. It is some sort of military type. However, you find it here, it's more of a civilian body. Always trying to provide the best services. So the career guidance and the career counseling, it is missing big time. At the universities, colleges level, it is fine. They are doing very well. And the first stage, you want to start from the high school, secondary school, starting from level 10. Going up to level 12. And from our experience in the market, we're having an issue with our curriculum where we need to focus on it. What is our objective now from the 12 years plus the 2 years for kindergarten is to get piece of paper with some sort of skills. However, if we change that, we need to get more skills with piece of paper, whether it's art or science. And by that, what we will have juniors, nationals who will be able to join different areas. And joining the private sector will be a very easy practice for them. If we start implementing from the very early stage.
That's a very good point, Essa. Now, I want to then basically throw that back at you. How is the ENDP and the government managing to meet the expectations of those UAE nationals who are now freshly go into the private sector, or they freshly go into the public sector? They're fresh. So the integration is happening. Now they just come in. Now obviously, because they're either freshly graduated or have just very limited experience till now, they have many expectations. How do you meet the expectations that they already have?
Honestly speaking, Emirates National Development Program, it is one of His Highness initiatives where he actually at all the time he thought that why they have a program to focus only at the private sectors, taking into consideration the other excellent program which is it is already existing at the market. But launching a new program which it will focus on the private sector, definitely it will give them the chance where they will focus more on their core business. What is the core business of the ENDP? It is two mandates, I can say. First is to reduce the unemployment, UAE and Dubai. And the second mandate, it's also to increase the number of UAE nationals at the private sector. So here what we're having focus on on the main core of the business. Now, transferring that, on matching the public expectation. And here I'm saying, the private sector expectation and also, the UAE nationals, and who will be behind them all is, the government and the parents. In 2005, there was, a big gap. However, ENDP, including with the other local initiatives and the federal initiatives, we played a main role on changing the bad perception about working at the private sector. Maybe we did not reach up to the level where we want, to say that, this is our main objectives we have achieved in terms of matching the expectation. However, we are actually now moving on to the right direction. Why? Because today we can see a lot of nationals working at the private sectors. Whereas, as I mentioned before, it is one of the main elements which is adding a lot of values to UAE economy. Even though UAE as an overall, it's an oil producer. However, leaders, they are saying that we don't want. His Highness Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, always they are referring that we want to have multi-resources.
Moving away from oil dependence.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty and the good part of of our leaders, where they are always having a future vision. So matching the expectation, it is always a very important. And at the same time, always I'm saying that whenever we like to develop any new program, please go and ask what's the private sector needs. Because we find that 60 or 70% of the future income will come from this very important sector. And here where we need also to match between the nationals and the private sectors and the government expectation.
On that point, one of the conversations going on right now at the event, it's a very interesting discussion. And this is something actually which I want to give an example. Singapore has excelled at this. And I think the UAE and other GCC countries can really help, and maybe you can give your perspective, is the mentoring of talented young UAE nationals who have joined the various industries. What is the UAE doing to take steps on providing good mentoring to such people?
Well, I can say for that, from our experience, mentoring, it is one of the very good items. We as a program, we have not take the initiatives of working with these very important initiatives. I can say for that, at the Dubai government levels, when the government have launched the Sheikh Mohammed Leadership Program, parallelly they have also launched the mentoring program, where the leaders, they will have a mentor from the private sectors. And here's the question: why we are always referring for the mentoring programs to the private sector? Because the private sector got the chance where they can give more of multi-international experience. And mentoring can be implemented even at the high school levels, where we can come up with a new model, where we can call it 70-30, 50-50 practical. Instead of only keeping the students at the class levels, what about if we at the beginning start on implementing something called 50-50, 70-30 technical and on a class study. This will help us to build a better infrastructure for the future leaders. If we are talking about a full generation, 12 to 16 years. This means after 16 or 15 years, we will have an excellent leaders who will be able to take the future programs and the future expand of the government. Today we can see that the UAE government is actually entering into the new projects where the neighboring countries did not thought of it. And always learning from the other, it is one of the best. We have learned from Saudi Arabia, we have learned from Oman, we have learned from Bahrain. and also they will learn from your ears. And this is the good things of of the GCC and and the country which is in the region, that we are learning from others. And the mentoring program, what it means that that you are learning from the mentor. And the mentor will always pass his experience or her experience to mentorees, where it will help them also to be also a mentor in the future. And this is the practical part.
My final question is, it's not just more than a question, it's more of a statement. It's, of this interview, we will be showing to the people who are responsible for nationalizing, who are looking forward to nationalizing. If you could give them a message, what would be that message?
Well, my message is, it's one simple message. Give the UAE nationals a chance, and they will prove themselves. Don't look to the skills, look to the attitude. And by looking to the attitude, they will be able to help themselves and the country to avoid implementing the future quota. For example, today we don't have at the hotel levels a quota. The government might be forced in the future to implement the quota. They are saying, give the UAE nationals the chance, and they will prove themselves. And you'll find that the UAE nationals, they are always so aggressive to learn and to be part of the organization success. It does not mean that all UAE nationals they are 100% perfect. However, it is our responsibilities to make it perfect. And we are, as a local programs looking after the Emiratisation, always will be supporting any organization to work seriously on looking after the Emiratis. And from experience, we can see today, a lot of UAE nationals who actually join the private sector in very junior levels, and today they are in the leader positions. And here I'm referring only at the private sector, because this is my main focus. We wish them all the best, and always our doors, our hearts, it's open to them. And the Emiratis, always they are there, to be part of the company success.
Thank you very much, Dr. Essa. It's a pleasure. And I wish you all the best as well. Thank you.
And we wish you and the audience all the best at the conference. And really, I think this is a very good chance where the people they will meet and they will understand that that this is a very good conferences where we can share our experience and enhance it to a better levels where we can actually build a better infrastructure for our future generation.
Thank you.